Good morning. I hope you had a great night. I hope you guys enjoyed chapters 1 and 2 and meeting Nori and trying to figure out what her magic is going to do at this big test that she has today. Trying to figure out if she can get into Sage Academy or is her magic going to go completely wonky. All right, so today we're going to read chapters 3 and 4, kind of find out what happens with Nori. I want you guys to predict what you think is going to happen to Nori. Do you think she's going to get into Sage Academy, or do you think her magic is going to go completely wonky? And if you think she's going to get in, how do you think her life is going to be with Dad being the headmaster? Or what do you think is going to happen if her magic goes wonky and she doesn't get into Sage Academy? She's clearly going to have to go to a different school if that's the case. But how does that affect her family dynamics and her life? Something I want you to think about for a minute or so. And then we're going to get started. And we're going to think about that for a second, thinking about what's going to happen and how it's going to affect Nori. The reason I ask you to think about those kinds of things is because in our first unit in reading, we're going to be talking about point of view, and we're going to talk about literary elements and making and confirming predictions. So making that prediction of what we think is going to happen with Nori is working on those. Are we going to be right, or are we not going to be right? And it's okay to not be right, because it's our thoughts. It's what we think is going to happen, not knowing what is actually going to happen. I personally cannot make a prediction. I've read the story, so I kind of know what happens. So without giving it away. All right, we're ready? Chapter 3. The Hall of Magic and Performance was very grand. The ceilings were painted with dragons and unicorns. The seats were covered in dark purple velvet. The curtains on the side of the stage were gold. A large chandelier hung from the ceiling, lit by candles. On stage was a wooden table that looked to be as old as the school itself. Nori walked onto the stage and faced the audience. Seated in the front row were 4 teachers and her father, the headmaster. He wore his second best suit. So remember, she's just walking in to do her big test. He didn't smile. He sat rigid. He didn't have to tell anyone that Nori was his daughter. Everybody knew. Nori's legs wobbled. State your name, commanded Mr. Putthore. Nori had met him before, when she attended school events with her siblings. In all those times, she'd never seen him smile. Not once. Eleanor Boxwood Horace, she answered, but everybody calls me Nori. Mr. Putthore drew his eyebrows together. We will begin the basic tests, Mrs. Horace. If you show talent in one area of magic, we will ask to see more of what you can do in that category. Nori nodded. For example, continued Mr. Putthore, the flare test begins with lighting a match. If you can do that, we will ask you to roast a marshmallow, then cook an egg, and so forth. Nori nodded again. However, if you cannot light the match, you are not a flare, in which case we will move on to the next category. Do you understand? Yes. Please approach the table, Miss Horace. Nori stepped forward. On the table was a box. You may open it, said Mr. Putthore. Nori opened it and pulled out a large, warty toad. It croaked and blinked its bulging eyes. Make the toad disappear, Mr. Putthore instructed. This is the flicker test, then, thought Nori, making things invisible like her father could. Nori figured she might as well give it a shot. It would be so great to be a flicker like her father and not be a messed up fluxer. She closed her eyes. She tried to erase that toad with her mind. She really, really tried. No toad, no toad, no toad. She opened her eyes. The toad was still there. Its eyes were still bulging. The teachers made marks in their notebooks. Nori's father pursed his lips and made the toad disappear himself. Next, Mr. Putthore stepped onto the stage and produced a box of matches. He set the box on the table, took out a single match, and held it out to Nori. Light this for us without striking it, meaning like making it light normally. The flare test. Flares could manipulate fire and heat like Hawthorne did. Maybe I could do this one, Nori thought. She had lit the sofa on fire after all. That time she came down with a small case of dragon. Don't even think about it, or it might happen. Nori shook her head. I can't, she told Mr. Putthore. The teacher made marks in their notebooks. All right then, said Mr. Putthore. Lift yourself into the air, 2 feet from the floor precisely. Oh, Nori thought, the flyer test. Nori wasn't a flyer, but she had indeed flown more than once. For example, in January, she had turned into a mouse with bluebird wings and nope. They do not want to see that. These professors wanted normal flyer flying. Nori contracted her muscles. She sensed her face turning red. Up. She remained firmly on the floor. Silly faces won't make you fly, Miss Horace, Mr. Putthore scolded. Let's move on. I will summon Pokey. He whistled a short melody. A silver unicorn peeked out from backstage. Shyly, it trotted out. As you know, unicorns do not like mushrooms, Mr. Putthore said, and they're quite skittish around most humans. A small pile of mushrooms appeared on the table in front of Nori. Convince Pokey to nibble them from your hand. The fuzzy test. Said, animal magic. Dahlia could do this in a heartbeat. Nori scooped up the mushrooms. Here, girl, she said. Here, Pokey. She took a step forward toward the unicorn. Pokey whined and stepped away. No, Pokey, you like mushrooms. Yummy, yummy mushrooms. Pokey stepped back again. Enough, Mr. Putthore said wearily, but Nori kept trying. Come on, Pokey, be a brave unicorn. I won't hurt you. She took a deep breath. Eat the mushrooms, pretty please. Nori moved a step forward. Pokey reared her hind legs and bolted. She galloped 3 times around the stage before leaping off and thundering down the aisle. She made a sharp right in the lobby and disappeared up the stairs. Nori wanted to hide. 4 tests failed. Pokey afraid. Mr. Putthore exasperated. Her father frozen in his seat. Still, the flexor test would be next. She could do it. She knew she could. Chapter 4. Nori's father rose. There is one category left, he said in a great booming voice. It was the voice he used when addressing large crowds. Also, sometimes at home. Please turn yourself into a black kitten, Miss Horace. Nori concentrated hard. Kitten, she thought. Kitten, kitten, kitten. Like before, she felt her body shift, her vision blur, popping noises. She concentrated on the details she knew the teachers would want to see. Whiskers, claws, a bit of fluff in the ears, and Nori was a kitten. A black one, too, from what she could see of her paws. Very nice, said Mr. Putthore. Yes, girl Nori thought. Kitten Nori purred. Dr. Horace will now check the details. Mr. Putthore said. Nori's father climbed on stage. He looked down at Kitten Nori. She jumped onto the table and licked her paw, showing off. Father's eyes were serious behind his glasses, but Kitten Nori thought he looked pleased. He bent over her. Her sense went on high alert. What was that good smell? Fish. Fish. Ignore that fish, girl Nori tried to tell Kitten Nori. Father liked to eat smoked salmon for breakfast. There was a smell of it left on his hands. That was all. But Kitten Nori couldn't help it. Fish! No fish for you. Father reached to pet her. His hand smelled yummy. Fish! Kitten Nori's jaw unhinged like a snake's. Snake? Was she a snake kitten now? A snitten? Snap! Nori chomped her father's hand with her snitten jaw. He yelped in pain and tried to shake her off, but she held on. Fish! Stop it now! Fish! That is not a salmon. That is father. Fish! You'll never get into Sage Academy if you eat the headmaster. Fish! Stop! Fish! Your entire future is at stake. Oh, fine. With a wrench, Snitten Nori let go of her father's hand. Slowly, Nori felt the snake in her disappear. Phew. Now she was just a kitten again. A good black kitten, she was pretty sure. So maybe she could pass the test after all? It had been only a minute of Snitten. Maybe they hadn't even noticed. Nori felt a tingling on her shoulders. What was happening? She squirmed to look. Oh no, she had sprouted wings, enormous wings that were 3 times the size of her kitten body. Huge claws burst out of her kitten paws. Flap, flap, roar! She leapt into the air. She swooped around the auditorium with her big dragon wings. She was a full-on dragon kitten now. How awesome is this? Dritten Nori thought. So awesome. Uh-oh, this is not going to end well. Girl Nori disagreed. No, not awesome. Just be a normal kitten. But Drit and Nori wasn't going to listen. No way, flying is too much fun. Maybe it's time to breathe some fire, yeah? No fire, thought girl Nori. Yes, fire, thought the Dritin. And that unicorn, what a yummy snack a unicorn would be. Wait, thought girl Nori, stop. Calm down, fly lower. Maybe you could still fix things. In fact, she had an idea, a good idea. And if the idea worked, Nori might get into Sage Academy after all. Drit and Nori flew down from the high ceiling of the hall. As the teachers watched, she flapped her wings and hovered over the stage, 2 feet above the floor, precisely, just like the flyer test. Did the teachers notice? Yes, they did. They were scribbling in their notebooks. Then, because she might as well try, Drit and Nori went for the flare test. The great puff, she set the entire box of matches on fire. Woohoo! Fluxer, flyer, and flare. That was 3 out of the 5 categories. Would they consider her a triple talent? Even if they didn't, it was going to be okay. She had big magic. That had to be worth something. Or was she really, really failing the big test? Her sudden doubt knocked the excitement out of her. She turned back into a girl. Thank you very much for testing me, Nori said. She forced a smile just the way Hawthorne had told her to. She used her very best manners. The teachers continued making marks in their notebooks, but Father couldn't. He was cradling his swelling hand, his swelling, bleeding hand. Teachers looked stern. Finally, they stopped writing and put their heads together. They whispered fiercely. Nori went cold. Mr. Putthore looked up. Miss Horace, I'm sorry. We can't have such wonky magic here at Sage Academy. No matter how big your power and no matter who your family is, but your magic is damaged somehow. Nori looked at her father. Her father looked at her. Agreed, he said grimly. Eleanor Boxwood Horace, your mission is denied. I wonder how Nori's feeling that she got denied by her own father and that her magic is now considered wonky. She, in my opinion, I think she's feeling a little full of doubt. She got very excited there for a moment because she's like, oh, I did this and I could do this and they're going to like it. And they really didn't. They really felt like that's not what you're supposed to do. You can only be talented in one magical area. Or maybe not. It depends. We'll have to see what happens. But Nori does not get into Sage Academy. And how do you think that's going to affect her now? How do you think the dynamics of her family are going to change? Are they going to change? Or do you think her father's going to be completely okay with it? Something to ponder for the weekend, and we will find out on Monday. Have a great day, guys.